Katie Martinez floated through the main corridor of Nexus Station, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the metal floor. She still wasn't used to the artificial gravity here. It felt too light, like walking on the moon. Back on Earth, everything had weight and substance. Here, she felt like she might drift away if she wasn't careful. The station was massive, larger than any city Katie had ever seen. It orbited a bright yellow star in neutral space where dozens of alien species came to trade, study, and negotiate. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 2 years ago, and Katie was part of the first group of human students accepted into the station's academy. She was studying xenobiology, learning about the incredible variety of life in the galaxy. Every day brought new wonders. Yesterday, she had dissected a plant that could move and think. Today, she was supposed to meet her study group in the library. Katie passed by a group of tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms. They stopped talking and stared at her as she walked by. She was used to this by now. Humans were still a curiosity here. Most aliens had never seen one in person before. She reached the library and spotted her friends near the back. Zilthra was easy to find. The Vexian looked like a giant praying mantis with beautiful iridescent wings that changed color when she moved. Next to her was Paul, a Nuum who resembled a large, intelligent slug. His skin glowed with soft patterns of light that served as his language. Katie, Zilthra's voice clicked and chirped through her translator device. "You're late again." "Sorry," Katie said, sitting down carefully in the chair designed for species half her size. "I got lost in Section C again. All these corridors look the same." Paul's skin flashed in patterns of blue and green, and his translator spoke in a calm, measured voice. "We were discussing the assignment. Professor Kix wants us to compare respiratory systems across 5 different species. They worked together for an hour, sharing notes and comparing data." Katie enjoyed these quiet moments. Her friends were kind and patient, even when she asked questions that seemed obvious to them. The galaxy was so much bigger and more complex than she had ever imagined. The peace was interrupted by a loud crash from the front of the library. Katie looked up to see a group of large reptilian aliens entering. They were Draknor, one of the species known throughout the Council as warriors. Their scales were thick and dark like armor, and they moved with aggressive confidence. The largest one, standing nearly 8 feet tall, knocked over a display of data pads as he passed. He didn't bother to pick them up. The librarian, a small bird-like alien, cowered behind her desk and said nothing. Zilthra's wings folded tight against her body, a sign of fear. "That's Krevtok," she whispered. "He's dangerous. We should go." "Who?" Katie asked. "Krevtok. He's a senior student, but he doesn't study much. He spends most of his time bullying smaller species. Everyone's afraid of him." Katie watched as Krevtok and his gang took over a large study area, forcing the aliens already there to leave. They spoke loudly in their harsh language, laughing and shoving each other. No one complained. No one even made eye contact with them. "Why doesn't someone report him?" Katie asked. Paul's skin flashed orange, a sign of distress. "Many have tried. But Draknor culture is respected by the Council. They say this behavior is normal for them, establishing dominance. Security rarely intervenes." Katie frowned but said nothing. Back on Earth, bullies existed too, but they usually faced consequences eventually. Here it seemed like strength was its own justification. Over the next few days, Katie kept noticing Krevtok around the station. He was hard to miss. Wherever he went, smaller aliens scattered. He seemed to enjoy the fear he created, going out of his way to intimidate others. Katie first interacted with him directly on her way to class. She was walking through a narrow corridor when Krevtok suddenly stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His scales were dark green and scarred from what looked like many fights. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils like a snake's. He looked down at her and said something in his language. His translator rendered it in flat, emotionless tones. "A human. I've never seen one up close before." "Excuse me," Katie said politely. "I need to get past." Krevtok didn't move. Instead, he leaned closer, studying her like she was an insect. "You're small. Weak-looking. Is it true your planet is a death world?" "Earth is classified as Class 12, yes," Katie said, keeping her voice calm. "Now please move." Krevtok laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Class 12. The Council calls any mudball with weather a death world. Your species is soft. I can see it." He poked her shoulder with one clawed finger, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to be disrespectful. Katie felt anger rising in her chest, but pushed it down. She wasn't here to fight. She was here to learn and represent humanity well. "I'm going to be late for class," she said, and stepped around him. Krevtok let her pass, but she heard him laughing behind her. "Weak primates," he muttered. That was just the beginning. Over the following week, Krevtok seemed to decide that Katie was his new favorite target. He would accidentally bump into her in hallways, always hard enough to make her stumble. He knocked her datapad out of her hands twice. He made crude comments about humans whenever she was within hearing range. Katie reported each incident to station security. The officer who took her complaint, a thin insectoid species called Thrytix, seemed sympathetic but helpless. "I understand your frustration," the officer said, "but unless he causes actual harm, our hands are tied. Draknor culture is protected under council diversity laws, so he can just keep doing this," Katie asked. "I advise you to avoid him when possible," the officer said. Katie left the security office frustrated. Zilthra and Pol tried to help by walking with her everywhere, but they were terrified of Krevtok. Katie couldn't blame them. The Draknor were physically powerful, and most council species had evolved on peaceful worlds. Violence was rare in their cultures, almost unthinkable, but Katie was from Earth. Violence wasn't unthinkable there. It was part of history, part of survival, woven into the very fabric of human evolution. Katie had never been in a real fight, but she had grown up learning how to defend herself. Her father, a former Marine, had insisted on it. Still, she tried to be patient. She was representing her entire species here. The last thing humanity needed was for her to cause an incident. So she avoided Krevtok when she could, ignored him when she couldn't, and focused on her studies. 2 weeks after their first encounter, Katie was in the central plaza. It was the largest open area on the station, a place where species from across the galaxy came to shop, eat, and socialize. The plaza was several stories tall, with shops and restaurants built into the walls at multiple levels. Artificial sunlight streamed from panels in the ceiling, and the air was filled with a dozen different smells and sounds. Katie was at a vendor's stall, buying supplies for a lab project. She was examining a scanning device when she felt a familiar presence behind her. She turned to see Krevtok standing there with 4 of his friends, all of them Draknor or similar warrior species. "The human girl," Krevtok said loudly, making sure others could hear, still pretending to be a student. "Tell me, do they let pets attend the academy now?" Katie took a breath and turned back to the vendor. "I'll take this scanner," she said, trying to ignore him. Krevtok stepped closer. "I'm talking to you, primate." "And I'm not interested in talking to you," Katie said, paying the vendor quickly. That's when Krevtok shoved her. It wasn't a gentle push. His hand struck her back with significant force, sending her stumbling forward several steps. She caught herself against the vendor's table, her purchases scattering across the ground. The plaza went quiet. Aliens nearby stopped what they were doing and watched. This was serious. Physical contact without permission violated council law, but everyone seemed frozen, waiting to see what would happen. Katie stood up slowly. Her heart was pounding, and she could feel adrenaline flooding her system. This was the moment. She could walk away, file another useless report and let him win, or she could stand up for herself. She turned to face Krevtok. "That was a mistake," she said quietly. Krevtok's eyes widened slightly, then he laughed. His friends laughed too. "A mistake? You dare threaten me?" He looked at his gang. "The little human has spirit. Let's see how much." He shoved her again, harder this time. It was meant to humiliate her, to send her sprawling on the ground in front of everyone. It was supposed to be the punchline to his joke, but Katie was ready this time. As his hand came toward her, she shifted her weight and absorbed the impact. Her feet, built for Earth's heavy gravity, held firm. She barely moved an inch. Then she responded. Katie's fist drove forward with all the strength her human body could generate. It wasn't a wild swing. It was precise, targeted, and backed by muscle that had evolved to hunt prey across African plains. Her knuckles connected with the softer scales on Krevtok's midsection, just below his ribcage. The sound was terrible. A wet crack echoed through the plaza, followed by Krevtok's scream of pain. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with shock and agony. He tried to breathe but could only gasp. Katie stood over him, her expression cold and focused. Her voice carried clearly across the silent plaza. "We don't play." The plaza erupted into chaos. Aliens screamed and scattered in every direction, some fleeing in pure terror, others frozen in shock. Krevtok's friends backed away from Katie like she was a bomb that might explode. One of them, a large gray-scaled Drachnor, actually tripped over his own feet in his hurry to get away from her. Katie stood perfectly still, her chest rising and falling as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She stared down at Krevtok, who was curled on the ground making awful wheezing sounds. She hadn't meant to hurt him this badly, but she hadn't held back either. He had pushed her twice. He had made his choice. Zilthra appeared at Katie's side, her wings vibrating with panic. "Katie, what did you do?" "What did you do?" "He shoved me," Katie said simply. "Twice." Paul arrived moments later, his skin flashing rapid patterns of red and orange. His translator could barely keep up. "Security is coming. Katie, you need to explain. They'll arrest you. They might deport you." Katie nodded slowly, the reality of what just happened beginning to sink in. She had hit him hard, really hard. She looked at her hand and saw her knuckles were already starting to bruise. Krevtok was still on the ground, making horrible gasping sounds as he struggled to breathe. The crowd had formed a wide circle around them, staying as far back as possible while still watching. Katie could hear them whispering in a dozen languages. Some were pointing at her. Others were recording everything on their devices. This would be all over the station within minutes. Station security arrived in force. 6 officers in white armor surrounded the scene, their weapons drawn but not pointed at anyone specific. The lead officer was a Quellan, an amphibian species known for being calm and methodical. His name tag read Vental. "Nobody move," Vental said, his voice amplified by his helmet. He looked at Krevtok writhing on the ground, then at Katie standing calmly nearby. "What happened here?" Several aliens started talking at once, all trying to explain. Vental held up a webbed hand for silence. "One at a time. You first." He pointed at a small bird-like alien who had been standing close to the vendor's stall. The bird alien's voice was high and nervous. The Drachnor Krevtok, he pushed the human female twice hard, then she hit him. Just once, but he fell down and hasn't gotten up. Vental looked at Katie. "Is this accurate?" "Yes," Katie said. "He's been harassing me for weeks. I filed multiple reports with your office. Today he physically assaulted me twice. I defended myself." "Defended?" One of the other officers, a thick-shelled species Katie didn't recognize, gestured at Krevtok. "Look at him. You nearly killed him." A medical team rushed into the plaza carrying their equipment. They surrounded Krevtok and began scanning him with various devices. Katie could hear their urgent voices and the beeping of their machines. After a moment, the head medic, a multi-armed alien with gray skin, looked up at Vental. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, internal bleeding. "We need to get him to the medical center immediately." The crowd gasped. Someone in the back shouted, "She's a monster." Vental held up his hand again. "Quiet, everyone back up. Give the medics room to work." He turned to Katie. "You need to come with us. You're being detained pending investigation." "Am I under arrest?" Katie asked. "Not yet, but you will be held while we determine what happened and whether charges will be filed." Katie nodded. She looked at Zilthra and Paul. "Contact the human embassy. Tell them what happened." "We will," Zilthra said, her voice shaking. "We'll tell them everything. We'll testify for you." 2 security officers moved to either side of Katie. They didn't restrain her but made it clear she was to come with them. As they led her away from the plaza, Katie could hear the whispers following her. Dangerous. Savage. Deathworlder. The words stung, but she kept her head up and her expression neutral. They took her to the security center, a clean, sterile facility near the station's core. The cell they put her in wasn't like a prison. It was more like a hotel room with a locked door. There was a bed, a bathroom, and a screen she could use to access the station's entertainment network, though not communications. Katie sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to shake. Her hands trembled as the adrenaline wore off. She had really done it. She had hit an alien, broken his ribs, maybe damaged his lung permanently. She might be expelled from the academy. She might be sent back to Earth in disgrace. Worse, she might have damaged humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council. But what else could she have done? Let him keep pushing her around? Let him assault her without consequence? No. She had done what she needed to do. She just hoped others would see it that way. Hours passed. Katie tried to eat the food they brought her, but her stomach was too tight. She watched the entertainment screen without really seeing it. Finally, late in the station's night cycle, the door opened and Vental entered. He sat down across from her, his large eyes studying her carefully. "I've been reviewing the security footage," he said. "All of it. Every interaction between you and Krevtok over the past 2 weeks." Katie waited, saying nothing. "You filed 5 formal complaints," Vental continued. "Each one was logged and noted, but no action was taken. This is a failure on our part. Our officers should have intervened. So what happens now?" Katie asked. "Now we investigate fully. We've interviewed witnesses. We've examined the medical reports. And we're trying to understand exactly what happened." He leaned forward. "Can you explain how you caused such severe damage? Krevtok has natural armor. His scales can deflect most handheld weapons. Yet your bare hand broke through them and fractured his ribs." Katie took a breath. "I'm human. We're from a high-gravity world with a lot of large predators. We evolved to be strong. Strong enough to nearly kill a Drachnor with one punch. I didn't try to kill him. If I wanted to kill him, I would have aimed for his throat or his eyes. I aimed for his body where I thought his armor would protect him more." Vental's eyes widened slightly. "You're saying you held back?" "Yes, I hit him hard enough to stop him, not hard enough to kill him." The security chief was quiet for a long moment. "This is going to become complicated. The Drachnor community is very upset. They're calling for your immediate expulsion from council space. Some are demanding harsher punishment." "And what do you think?" Katie asked. Vental stood up. "I think you defended yourself against someone who assaulted you. I think our security failed to protect you when you asked for help. And I think the council is about to learn something important about humans." He walked to the door, then paused. "Your embassy has been contacted. An ambassador is on her way. Until then, try to rest." The next morning, Katie met Ambassador Helen Clark. The ambassador was a tall woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She entered Katie's cell alone and sat down across from her. "Tell me everything," Helen said. "Don't leave anything out." Katie told her the whole story, from the first encounter with Krevtok to the moment in the plaza. Helen listened without interrupting, taking notes on her datapad. When Katie finished, Helen nodded slowly. "You did nothing wrong legally. This is clear-cut self-defense. But politically, this is messy. The Drachnor are an influential species. They have allies on the council. And humans are still new here. We don't have many friends yet. So what do?" Katie asked. "We tell the truth. We present the facts. And we make it very clear that Earth will not tolerate its citizens being denied basic rights to self-defense." Helen's expression hardened. "But Katie, you need to understand something. This is bigger than you now. This incident is going to force the council to confront what it means to have humans among them. Some species will be frightened. Others will be angry. We need to handle this carefully." "I just wanted him to leave me alone," Katie said quietly. "I know, and you had every right to defend yourself. But now we need to help the council understand that." Helen stood up. "A hearing has been scheduled for tomorrow. You'll testify along with witnesses. The council will review all evidence and make a ruling. Until then, you stay here." That night, Katie barely slept. She kept replaying the moment over and over in her mind. The sound of her fist connecting. The crack of breaking bone. Krevtok's expression of shock and pain. Had she gone too far? Should she have just walked away? But every time she questioned herself, she remembered the feeling of his hand shoving her. The humiliation. The helplessness of filing reports that went nowhere. No, she had done what she needed to do. She just hoped the council would understand. The next morning, guards escorted Katie to the council chamber. It was a massive room with seats rising in tiers around a central floor. Representatives from dozens of species sat in those seats, all watching as Katie was led to a platform in the center. Vental stood near a display screen. "This hearing will determine whether Katie Martinez violated council law through her actions in the Central Plaza yesterday. We will hear testimony, review evidence, and make a determination." The hearing began with witness testimony. Zilthra and Paul both spoke, describing Krevtok's harassment and Katie's attempts to avoid conflict. Other aliens who had witnessed the plaza incident testified about what they saw. The bird-like alien who had been at the vendor stall gave a particularly detailed account. Then they showed the security footage. Katie watched herself on the... Ambassador Helen Clark stood before the council, her posture straight and confident. Katie watched from her platform as the ambassador prepared to speak. The chamber was completely silent, every representative leaning forward to hear what the human diplomat would say. Members of the council, Helen began, her voice clear and strong. We are here because a young woman defended herself after being repeatedly assaulted. That is the simple truth of this situation, but I understand that many of you are confused and frightened by what you witnessed. You saw Katie Martinez, a human student, severely injure a Draknor with a single blow. This seems impossible to you. Draknor are warriors, armored and strong. How could a smaller being from an unknown species cause such damage? Helen gestured to the screen, which now showed an image of Earth from space. The answer lies in where humans come from. Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. But I don't think any of you truly understand what that classification means. You see the number and file it away as a curiosity. Today I'm going to help you understand. The screen changed, showing a map of Earth with various markers. The Galactic Council has cataloged over 10,000 inhabited worlds. Of those, only 43 are classified as Class 12. These are worlds where the environment itself is actively hostile to life, where survival requires constant adaptation and struggle. A video began playing on the screen. It showed a massive storm on Earth with winds tearing apart trees and buildings. Then it switched to a volcano erupting, spewing lava hundreds of feet into the air. Next came footage of an earthquake, the ground literally splitting open. Then a tsunami, a wall of water destroying everything in its path. The council members watched in silence, many of them shifting uncomfortably in their seats. These kinds of disasters were rare on most worlds, happened maybe once in a generation. But the videos kept coming, showing disaster after disaster. This is normal on Earth, Helen said. Not rare, not unusual, normal. Humans evolved in an environment that constantly tried to kill them. Every single day was a fight for survival. The screen changed again, this time showing various Earth animals. A lion taking down a buffalo, a great white shark breaching the water to catch a seal, a pack of wolves hunting an elk, a bear catching salmon in a river. These are Earth predators, Helen explained. They hunt, they kill, they eat other living things. Most council species evolved as herbivores or scavengers on peaceful worlds. You don't have predators like these. You can't imagine what it's like to be hunted. A Vexian representative, an elderly one with faded wings, spoke up. We understand that Earth has dangerous animals. But what does this have to do with the students' violence? Helen smiled slightly. Everything. Because humans didn't just survive alongside these predators. Humans became the apex predator, the hunter that surpassed all others. The screen now showed ancient humans, primitive but recognizable, chasing after large animals across a plain. Our ancestors hunted creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. They did this through intelligence, yes, but also through physical ability. The next series of images showed human anatomy, skeletal structure, muscle systems, bone density comparisons. Helen spoke as each image appeared. Human bones are 3 to 5 times denser than the average council species. This density evolved to withstand the impact of running, jumping, and fighting on a high-gravity world. Our muscles attach to our bones in ways that maximize leverage and force generation. A simulation played on the screen, showing a human punch in slow motion with overlays explaining the mechanics. When a human strikes something, we're not just using our arm strength. We use our legs, our core, our entire body working together to generate force. This is what Katie did when she defended herself. She used her body the way it evolved to be used. A Quellan representative raised a webbed hand. But the damage she caused, surely that exceeds normal defensive force. Does it? Helen challenged. Let me show you something. The screen split, showing footage of various council species in training scenarios. A Draknor practicing combat looked impressive, slow, and powerful. A Thrytic soldier moved with sharp, precise movements. Then the screen showed a human boxing match from Earth. The difference was startling. The human fighters moved with a speed and power that made the alien combat look like slow motion. Their fists struck with explosive force, their bodies weaving and dodging with incredible agility. Several council members actually gasped at the display. This is humans training, Helen said. Not fighting for survival. Not defending against real threats, training, playing. This is what we do for entertainment. She let that sink in for a moment. Katie Martinez is not a soldier. She's not a trained fighter. She's a biology student who learned basic self-defense from her father. What you saw in that plaza was a human civilian defending herself while showing considerable restraint. Restraint? A Draknor representative stood up, his scales flushing dark with anger. She broke Krevtok's ribs. She punctured his lung. You call that restraint? Helen turned to face him directly. Yes, I call that restraint. Because if Katie had wanted to kill Krevtok, he would be dead. Let me be very clear about this. A human with intent to kill can end a life in seconds using nothing but their bare hands. Katie had multiple opportunities to strike fatal blows. She chose not to. She aimed for a protected area of the body, expecting his natural armor to absorb more of the impact than it did. The chamber erupted in multiple conversations. Katie could see fear on many faces, anger on others. The Draknor representatives were speaking urgently among themselves. Bental had to call for order 3 times before the room settled down. Ambassador Clark continued. I know this is difficult to hear. You've welcomed humans into the council believing we were just another species. Perhaps a bit unusual, but fundamentally similar to those you already know. Today you're learning that we're more different than you realized. But different doesn't mean dangerous. Humans have coexisted peacefully on Earth for thousands of years. We've built civilizations, created art, developed philosophy and science. Yes, we're capable of violence, but we're also capable of controlling that violence, of choosing when and how to use it. A small mouse-like representative spoke up, her voice timid. How do we know humans won't hurt us? If one student can do this to a Draknor, what's to stop humans from attacking any species they wish? The same thing that stops you from harming others, Helen said gently. Law, ethics, basic decency. Katie didn't attack Krevtok because she was angry or because she wanted to hurt him. She defended herself after being assaulted, after filing proper complaints that were ignored, after trying every peaceful option available to her. She acted only when left with no other choice. Helen walked closer to the center of the chamber. I want to share something else with you. Something you need to understand about humans. The screen changed to show children playing on Earth. They were running, jumping, climbing trees, playing rough games that involved physical contact. Human children play violently by your standards. They fall down and get back up. They bump into each other, wrestle, test their strength against one another. This is how we learn the limits of our bodies. This is how we learn control. The video shifted to show children being taught by adults, learning to be gentle with smaller or weaker beings, learning when physical force is appropriate and when it isn't. Every human child learns this lesson, Helen said. We learn to control our strength. We learn to be gentle with those who are more fragile than us. Katie knows how to hold a butterfly without crushing it, even though her fingers could easily destroy it. She knows how to pet a small animal without hurting it. She has spent her entire life learning to modulate her strength to match the situation. Helen's voice grew stronger, so when Krevtok pushed her the first time, she didn't respond. When he pushed her the second time, she responded with precisely calculated force intended to stop the threat without causing permanent harm. The fact that his injuries are as severe as they are tells you more about the difference in our physiology than about Katie's intentions. The screen now showed medical scans of Krevtok's injuries. A human doctor appeared on the screen, a man with gray hair and kind eyes. I'm Dr. Ryan Cooper, a xenobiologist specializing in comparative anatomy. I've examined the medical reports on Krevtok. His injuries are serious but not life-threatening. With proper treatment, he'll make a full recovery. I've also analyzed the point of impact and the force delivered. The screen showed a simulation of the punch with data overlays. Based on my calculations, Katie Martinez struck with approximately 30% of her maximum potential force. A full-strength blow from a human of her size and build would have been lethal, regardless of Draknor armor. She pulled her punch significantly. Another council member, a tall, plant-like being, spoke. Even if we accept that she showed restraint, the fact remains that humans are dangerous. Should we not implement restrictions on human physical capabilities when they're in public spaces? Helen's expression hardened. No, absolutely not. Humans have the same rights as any council species. We have the right to defend ourselves when attacked. We have the right to exist in public spaces without being restricted or controlled. If you choose to implement such restrictions, the council chamber remained tense as Dr. Ryan Cooper continued his presentation. Katie watched from her platform, amazed at how thoroughly the ambassador's team had prepared. They had data, simulations, medical reports, everything needed to make the council understand what happened. Let me show you something else, Dr. Cooper said, and the screen changed to show a comparison chart. This shows reaction times across various species. The average Vexian reacts to stimulus in about 0.4 seconds. A Quellan takes about 0.35 seconds. A Drachnor, being a warrior species, reacts in about 0.25 seconds. He paused for effect. A human reacts in 0.15 seconds. We process information and respond faster than almost any other species in the Council. This is because on Earth being slow meant being dead. Our ancestors had to dodge predators, catch prey, and respond to dangers instantly. The screen showed another video, this time of a human catching a falling object before it hit the ground. The speed was remarkable even to Katie, who was used to seeing humans move. To the Council members, it must have looked superhuman. This is why Katie was able to respond when Krevtok pushed her the second time, Dr. Cooper explained. Her body reacted before she even consciously decided to. This is instinct, built into every human through millions of years of evolution. When threatened, we respond with speed and precision. A new human appeared on the screen, a woman with dark hair tied back in a professional bun. I'm Dr. Linda Hayes, a comparative physiologist. I want to talk about human pain tolerance and injury recovery, because this is crucial to understanding today's situation. The screen showed medical data and scans. Humans have a remarkable ability to continue functioning despite injury. We can break bones and keep walking. We can lose significant amounts of blood and remain conscious. Our bodies are designed to keep fighting even when damaged. This is, again, because of Earth's hostile environment. Dr. Hayes brought up a comparison chart. The average Council species would lose consciousness from pain at a stimulus level of about 6 on this scale. A Drachnor can tolerate pain up to level 8. A human? We regularly function at pain levels of 9 or 10. Some humans have given birth, one of the most painful experiences possible, and then walked away hours later. Several Council members looked disturbed by this information. The mouse-like representative actually squeaked in distress. I'm not telling you this to frighten you, Dr. Hayes said gently. I'm explaining why humans seem so dangerous to you. We're not trying to be intimidating. This is just how we are. Our bodies are tools for survival on a world that constantly challenged us. Every feature that seems aggressive to you was actually defensive on Earth. Dr. Cooper returned to the screen. Let me give you a final piece of context. Human history is filled with warfare, it's true. We've fought each other for resources, territory, and ideology, but we've also built vast civilizations based on cooperation. We've created art, music, literature, science. The same hands that can break bones can also perform delicate surgery, paint masterpieces, or comfort a crying child. The screen showed images of human achievements. The pyramids, great works of art, hospitals where humans cared for the sick, scientists working in laboratories, parents holding their children. Humans contain multitudes, Dr. Cooper said. We're capable of great violence, yes, but also great compassion. Katie Martinez is studying xenobiology because she wants to understand and help other species. She came to Nexus Station to learn and build bridges between humans and the greater galaxy. She didn't come here to fight. She fought only when she had no other choice. Ambassador Clark stepped forward again. The Council must decide today how it will treat humans. Will you judge us by our capacity for violence, or will you judge us by our choices? Katie chose peace for 2 weeks while being harassed and assaulted. She filed proper complaints. She tried to avoid conflict. Only when physically attacked did she defend herself, and even then, she used minimal force necessary to stop the threat. She gestured to Katie. This young woman represents the best of humanity. Curious, peaceful, respectful of other cultures. If you punish her for defending herself, you tell every human in Council space that they have no rights, no protection, no recourse when attacked. Is that really the message you want to send? The Drachnor representative who had spoken earlier stood again. His scales were still dark with anger, but his voice was more controlled now. What about Krevtok? He lies in medical care with broken bones. Does he not deserve justice? Justice for what? Helen asked directly. For assaulting someone and facing consequences? Your son or student or whatever he is to you made a choice. He chose to bully someone he perceived as weak. He chose to physically assault her not once but twice. He chose violence and violence responded. That's not injustice. That's cause and effect. The Drachnor's scales flushed even darker. You speak as if Drachnor culture is wrong. We value strength. We test ourselves against others. This is our way. And human culture values self-defense, Helen countered. We teach our children that it's okay to fight back when attacked. This is our way. Are you saying your way is more valid than ours? The chamber fell silent. This was the heart of the issue, Katie realized. Two different cultures, two different values colliding on neutral ground. The council had to decide which one would be supported. Bental stepped forward. Perhaps we should hear from Katie Martinez herself. She hasn't spoken yet. Katie, would you like to address the council? Katie stood up, her legs shaking slightly. She had never spoken to such a large and important group before. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. She took a deep breath and began. I didn't want this to happen, Katie said, her voice quiet but steady. I came to Nexus Station excited and hopeful. I've dreamed of studying alien life since I was a child. When I got accepted to the academy, it was the happiest day of my life. She looked around the chamber. I've made wonderful friends here. Zilthra and Paul have taught me so much about their cultures. I've learned from professors of a dozen different species. Every day has been amazing, discovering how different and beautiful life in the galaxy can be. Katie's voice grew stronger. When Krevtok started harassing me, I was confused. I didn't understand why he targeted me, but I tried to handle it the right way. I filed reports. I avoided him when I could. I never responded to his provocations with violence or even harsh words. She looked directly at the Draknor representatives, but when he pushed me in the plaza, something in me changed. I realized that all my reports, all my attempts to follow proper procedures had meant nothing. No one was going to help me. If I didn't defend myself, the harassment would just continue. It might even get worse. Katie's hands clenched at her sides. So yes, I hit him. I hit him hard. And I'm not sorry for defending myself, but I am sorry that it came to this. I wish security had acted on my complaints. I wish Krevtok had chosen to leave me alone. I wish I could have resolved this peacefully. She took another breath. I know I'm different from most species here. I know humans seem dangerous to you, but we're not monsters. We're just people trying to find our place in the galaxy. We want to be friends, to learn, to share knowledge and culture, but we also need to feel safe. We need to know that if someone attacks us, we have the right to defend ourselves. Katie looked at Vental. I accept whatever consequences the council decides, but I want everyone to understand that I did what I thought was necessary to protect myself. That's all. She sat down, her heart pounding. The chamber was completely silent for a long moment. Then the elderly Vexian representative spoke, her voice thoughtful. The child speaks with wisdom beyond her years. She acknowledges the tragedy of the situation while maintaining her right to self-defense. I find this balance admirable. Other representatives began speaking, some agreeing, some still expressing concern. The debate went on for over an hour. Katie listened to it all, trying to gauge which way the decision would go. Some species clearly wanted her punished as an example. Others seemed sympathetic to her situation. Many were simply confused, trying to process all the new information about humans. Finally, Vental called for order. The council will now deliberate in private. Katie Martinez, you will be returned to your quarters while we make our decision. This hearing is adjourned. Guards escorted Katie back to her cell. Ambassador Clark walked with her part of the way. You did well, Helen said. Your testimony was honest and compelling. Do you think they'll rule in my favor? Katie asked. I honestly don't know. This could go either way, but we presented the strongest case possible. Now we wait. The waiting was torture. Katie sat in her cell for hours, unable to focus on anything. She tried to watch entertainment programs but couldn't concentrate. She tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. What would happen if they ruled against her? Would she be sent back to Earth? Would she face criminal charges? Would this incident damage humanity's relationship with the Council permanently? Night fell on the station and still no word came. Katie finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. Her dreams filled with images of the plaza, of Krevtok falling, of council members staring at her with fear and anger. Katie woke to the sound of her cell door opening. Vental stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The council has reached a decision. Please come with me. Her heart hammering, Katie followed him through the corridors of the security center. It was early morning by the station's clock, and few people were around. They walked in silence until they reached the council chamber. The massive doors opened, revealing the assembled representatives waiting inside. Katie took her place on the central platform. The chamber felt different now, less hostile somehow. Many of the representatives who had looked at her with fear before now watched with something closer to curiosity, or even respect. The elderly Vexian representative, whose name Katie had learned was Elder Shixra, stood to speak. As one of the most senior council members, she had been chosen to deliver the verdict. Katie Martinez, Elder Shixra began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The council has deliberated extensively on your case. We have reviewed all evidence, heard all testimony, and considered the broader implications of our decision. We have reached a unanimous conclusion. Katie held her breath. The charges against you are dismissed. The council finds that you acted in lawful self-defense after being physically assaulted. Furthermore, we acknowledge that Nexus Station Security failed in its duty to protect you, despite multiple formal complaints. For this failure, we offer our sincere apology. Relief flooded through Katie so powerfully that her knees nearly buckled. Not guilty. She was free, but Elder Shixra wasn't finished. However, this incident has revealed significant gaps in the Council's understanding of humanity and its capabilities. Therefore, we are implementing several new measures. The screen behind her lit up with text. First, Nexus Station security protocols will be overhauled to better address harassment and bullying, regardless of the species involved. No student or resident should have to file 5 complaints before action is taken. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Second, educational programs about human physiology and capabilities will be offered at all stations and colonies with human populations. We cannot coexist peacefully with humans if we do not understand them. Katie saw several representatives nodding. This seemed reasonable. Third, and most significantly, the Council formally acknowledges that Deathworld species like humans possess physical capabilities that exceed most Council species. This is not a judgment of superiority or inferiority. It is simply biological fact. Humans have the same rights as all Council members, including the right to self-defense. Elder Shixra looked directly at Katie. We were wrong to dismiss your complaints. We were wrong to assume that because you appeared less intimidating than a Drachnor, you were helpless. We have learned an important lesson about making assumptions based on appearance. The Drachnor representative stood. He looked uncomfortable but determined. The Drachnor delegation wishes to make a statement. Krevtok's actions were dishonorable. He targeted someone he believed to be weak, seeking to humiliate rather than test himself fairly. This is not the warrior's way. We formally apologize to Katie Martinez and to humanity for his behavior. Krevtok will face consequences within our own community. Katie was stunned. She hadn't expected an apology from the Drachnor. Elder Shixra continued. Krevtok has been fined and placed on probation. When he recovers from his injuries, he will be required to attend cultural sensitivity training and perform community service. He will also issue a personal apology to Katie Martinez. The elder's expression softened. Katie, you are free to return to your studies. We hope this incident will not discourage you from continuing your education here. The galaxy needs more beings like you, those who seek to understand rather than judge, who choose peace until peace is no longer possible. Katie found her voice. Thank you, Elder Shixra. Thank you all. I appreciate the Council's wisdom and fairness. The hearing was concluded and Katie was finally free to leave. As she walked out of the chamber, Zilthra and Paul rushed to meet her. Zilthra's wings were vibrating with excitement and Paul's skin flashed bright patterns of joy. You're free, Zilthra exclaimed. We were so worried. I can't believe the Council ruled in your favor, Paul added. This is wonderful news. Ambassador Clark appeared, smiling broadly. Well done, Katie. You've helped humanity take a big step forward in Council relations. This could have gone very badly, but instead we've opened a dialogue about mutual understanding. Over the next few days, life on Nexus Station slowly returned to normal, though normal was different now. Katie noticed changes everywhere. Security patrols were more visible and responsive. The Academy announced new courses on comparative species studies, including a section on Deathworld biology. And most surprisingly, other students began approaching Katie asking questions about Earth and humans. Some were still nervous, but most were genuinely curious. They wanted to know what it was like to live on a high-gravity world, to evolve among predators, to have such physical strength. Katie answered their questions patiently, helping them understand that humans were more than just their physical capabilities. The biggest surprise came 3 days after the hearing. Katie was studying in the library when she noticed someone approaching her table. She looked up to see a young Draknor, much smaller than Krevtok, standing nervously nearby. "Excuse me," the young Draknor said, his voice hesitant. "Are you Katie Martinez?" "Yes," Katie said carefully. "My name is Torval. I'm a first-year student. I wanted to ask if you would teach me about Earth, about humans." He seemed genuinely interested, not hostile at all. Katie smiled. "Of course. Sit down." They talked for over an hour. Torval asked thoughtful questions about human culture, history, and biology. He seemed particularly interested in how humans balance their capacity for violence with their desire for peace. Katie explained about human ethics, laws, and social structures. "We're not that different from other species," Katie said. "We want safety, happiness, purpose. We want to learn and grow. Yes, we can be dangerous, but so can many species. The difference is we're honest about it." Torval nodded slowly. "Krevtok thought humans were weak because you seem small. But true strength isn't just physical, is it?" "No," Katie agreed. "True strength is knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. It's protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's standing up for what's right even when it's difficult." Word of Katie's willingness to answer questions spread quickly. Soon she was giving informal talks about Earth and humanity to small groups of students. The academy even asked her to guest lecture in a xenobiology class, where she spoke about human evolution and adaptation. Katie's relationship with Zilthra and Paul grew stronger too. They had stood by her during the investigation, testifying on her behalf despite their fear. That kind of loyalty meant everything to Katie. They spent their free time together, sharing meals, studying, and exploring the station. One evening, about 2 weeks after the incident, Katie received a message. It was from Krevtok. Her first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity won out. She opened it. The message was short and formal. "Katie Martinez, I owe you an apology. I acted dishonorably. I targeted you because I thought you were weak and easy to intimidate. I was wrong about you, about humans, about what strength really means. I am recovering from my injuries and learning from this experience. When I return to the academy, I hope we can start fresh. With respect, Krevtok." Katie read it twice, then sent a simple reply. "Apology accepted. I hope you've learned something valuable. We can start fresh," she meant it. Holding on to anger wouldn't help anyone. If Krevtok had genuinely learned from this experience, then something good had come from the whole terrible situation. Months passed. Katie completed her first term at the academy with excellent grades. Her reputation on the station had evolved from the human who broke a Draknor's ribs to Katie, the xenobiology student who's always willing to help. She tutored struggling students, participated in research projects, and continued building bridges between humans and other species. The incident in the plaza became something of a legend on Nexus Station. New students heard the story, usually exaggerated to absurd proportions. Katie was amused when she overheard someone claiming she had single-handedly defeated 10 Draknor warriors. The truth was dramatic enough without embellishment, but the real impact of what happened was more subtle and far-reaching. Across Council space, stations and colonies began implementing education programs about Deathworld species. Not just humans, but all species from challenging environments. The Council realized they had been operating under dangerous assumptions, and they moved to correct those gaps in knowledge. Human diplomats reported improved relations with many Council species. Some aliens were still nervous around humans, but most were simply more informed and respectful. The phrase "we don't play" had entered galactic consciousness as a reminder that humans, despite their friendly nature, were capable of defending themselves. Katie was recording a message to send back to Earth, something she did every few weeks to update her family. She sat in her small dormitory room, the camera aimed at her face. "Hey Mom, Dad, and Alex," she began. "I know you've probably heard about the incident by now. Don't worry, I'm fine. Everything worked out.